From the Penn Libraries.
School of Nursing.
Great, thanks for coming. That was a really fascinating faculty panel. And you guys weren't, well, Al seemed like he was just sitting here quietly. We actually blogged about 10 times during the last panel. So I just want to thank Anu and Marjorie and everyone on the WIC staff for helping to organize this day. It's always really great. So I think it's the third year we've done a student panel. It's turned out to be one really fascinating part of the whole symposium workshop. I mean, actually, I've learned a lot from the student panel. It's really changed the way that I've taught and used technology in the classroom. So a few of us met yesterday to start to talk, and we have a diverse group here, but actually there was a surprising amount of consensus in their reactions to technology. So first let me tell you about the students, and then we'll get started. So starting on my left and working that way. First we have Scott Zialo, who's a senior at Wharton, concentrating in marketing and management. Then to his left is Taylor McClendon, who's a junior at the Wharton School as well, and she's concentrating in marketing and operations. Then Dylan Petro is a junior in the college, majoring in philosophy, politics, and economics, or PPE. Then Linda Schnollis is a Penn alum from class of 2000, who's currently a junior in the accelerated BSN program in the School of Nursing. And then finally, Erin Wilson's a sophomore in the college studying science, technology, and society, as well as computer science. So I guess just to start us off, I asked if you could each just talk very briefly about one technology that's been used in a class, that either is well or not so well, that's somehow changed the classroom dynamic.
Yeah. So I'm actually taking a classics course, classics 124 this semester, which is hoaxes and forgeries in mythology. And the first few weeks we ran the class like a very traditional lecture, but this is a small class. It's 7 people, and midway through, our teacher sort of gave us the option of redesigning the course, changing the pedagogical method, and just experimenting with certain things. And immediately after that, we stopped lecturing. We started watching a lot of things online and sort of doing the flipped classroom model, and we also brought in Piazza to start sort of having conversations about the course outside of class and to really sort of continue the conversation. And since doing this, we've been doing this for about 4 weeks now, and everyone's really committed and engaged, and it's a great course. So.
Okay, again, I'm Taylor. I'm actually a sophomore, but it's all good. Last semester, I took a class with Dr. Guthrie Ramsey and Salamisha Tillett. They taught a joined class, and it was called Jazz as a Woman. It's probably one of the best classes that I've taken at Penn. And the way that we use technology is, well, the basis of the course is that a lot of the women's dialogues and women's stories throughout the history of jazz have been overshadowed by many of the men in the genre. So what we did was we traced how women were influencing both the music and just the story of jazz. So one of the ways that we use technology is that we were able to take music that was being played now and many of the artists that are here now and see how they compare and contrast to women in those days. So for example, let's say Lady Gaga. She's obviously very, very popular. And we just compared her to different motifs in the jazz women. But we were able to take her music and bring it to our professors and say, can you explain how she compares to Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald? And that was probably one of the best ways that I learned, just because you hear music all the time and you don't realize that it has a connection to the music before it, regardless of whether or not it's in the specific genre. So I think that YouTube was something that we used almost on a lecture basis, like every lecture.
So my freshman year, I took a class called Privacy in the Networked World, which was a writing seminar with Chris Mustaza, who's actually big in the IT department, so he really had a great handle on technology. And 2 of the really, really great uses of technology in his classroom were, 1, a very controversial technology, I think, among students and perhaps faculty as well, Blackboard. No, but he really owned it and was able to create the Blackboard blog in such a way that we would constantly be posting items that were relevant to class, and he would bring them up in class and engage with us with us during class time, which I think was really key using that medium, because when we posted, it wasn't just, we had to post daily, and it wasn't just posting, random things that would never get talked about. We were really posting relevant information that he brought into class. And in the classroom setting, he was very facilitatory towards using laptops. And really, his biggest, I think, advantage using laptops was when he would just say, all right, so we're discussing maybe, this privacy constitutional amendment, and we're going to get in groups and do a little group collaboration. And he would say, whip out your laptops, and we're going to kind of, go to different websites, and you get to really explore with free rein. He would give a general idea and kind of give us the free leash, use the internet, which seems like such a basic technology, but really isn't used so much in classes, sort of with the students having the liberal chance to use the internet and really explore and engage with the topic, not just on the direction that the professor gives, but really allowing an open engagement among a group. So I thought that was a really cool use of a really basic technology like the internet to allow group collaboration in an interesting way.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Linda. So my apologies for not being here earlier. I was actually in class and taking an exam. So I think based on what everyone is saying, I think that the most profound use of technology that I've experienced so far at Penn has been in Dr. Skanga's class, Anatomy and Physiology. No, she did not pay me to say any of this. I'm just telling you. In the classroom, because it was a lecture format, which means that we were not allowed to ask questions. However, Dr. Skanga had beautiful slides and PowerPoints that we went through, and then we also, had YouTube videos to sort of pick up where we were looking, like if we're talking about the G-couple receptor, like what does that mean? How does it look? And we look at a YouTube video, and it was awesome. But now that I am in the accelerated program full-time in the School of Nursing, we have the sim labs, which are amazing. They are fantastic. I mean, just the opportunity to be able to simulate taking care of a patient who a lot of times is actually freakier than the actual patient, because I don't know if any of you ever experienced with the sim lab, but we have like these these mannequins called like Vita Annie or whatever, and like you could be taking an assessment and then like they have a sudden cardiac event, and so the eyes fly open, the coughing starts, and I know for me, like I'd never seen the eyes open. I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like I lost and like ran out of the room. But but other than that, but that was a good experience because like I was so scared of the mannequin. The patient didn't faze me. When I go to clinical, I'm like, oh, you're coughing? What, you having a heart attack? All right, you're fine. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna go get some help. So all this is to say that I actually love the use of technology in the classroom as long as it's utilized in a focused manner to facilitate learning. And I'm an older learner and, graduated in 2000. I've got two 5.5-year-old twin daughters who are in kindergarten now, and they're starting to use computers. And I'm kind of like, I didn't do that when I was a kid. But, like, it's just neat to see how technology is starting to influence or facilitate the teaching process.
So just kind of jumping off that, you said, kind of talked a little bit about being focused and intentional, and I think that's been key for me. I'm in 2 classes right now. One where kind of I feel technology is being used for the sake of using technology, where I feel like there is a course blog, and we're all supposed to go and post on the course blog just so that we can say that we have a course blog. And there's, students are engaging with technology outside of the classroom, they're posting stuff, but I find it's being used in a really not meaningful way, in a way that it's like, yeah, I got to go post on the course blog. And I think there's sometimes this sense that like, oh, students, they just love technology. Like, and anything you throw at them that's technology related, like they'll eat that up. And I think that's definitely not true. I think it's really about the intent. And so take like something very similar. So I have another class where I actually started a Facebook group for the class. It's a 10-person seminar, and the professor's in the group also, and he totally endorsed it. And it's really similar, right? Like it's a Facebook group is essentially the same as a basic WordPress blog in terms of the way it kind of looks and feels. But there's some really small nuances in the experience and the associations that we have with that medium, Facebook, as opposed to something else, where worked into our flow, and it's kind of very natural to us, and it feels like, oh yeah, I go on Facebook, I check stuff, and like, oh, someone posted an article for my class, that's great, and it feels really natural. And so technology is being used there in a way that really feels natural to me, and it feels really relevant, and doesn't feel like it's being used just for the sake of doing it. It's because we want to do it. There's no pressure to do it. There's no pressure to go and check it. It's really just, it's a natural part of what we're doing.
Yeah, so I can see there is a lot of interesting overlap here. So Linda and Aaron, it's interesting that you both saw things had to be focused, relevant, and natural as natural kind of part of the class. But Scott was actually saying, I think something related, but also that the technology should be, and the use of technology should be transparent in a way. So he's talking about if something's experimental, you need to know that it's experimental. It should be brought in as part of the experiment. Does that ring true to everyone else?
I mean, to me it does, but I definitely believe that. I mean, for me, I have two kind of interesting experiences. One is that I'm a Manager 100 TA. So when we were rolling out the launch of Canvas, when we first brought it to our freshman students, we told them that you have to use Canvas. It's a complicated system, but you'll learn it eventually, don't worry. And that was sort of how we predisposed everyone to this product. And we had a lot of problems introducing Canvas to the freshman class with that, with those instructions. And sort of in hindsight, you go, duh, of course. But I think that it was a little too much like forcing the technology on them. You have to use this platform. And there weren't very clear avenues for people to get feedback as well as to give feedback about sort of their experience. And then I contrast that a bit with, say, this classics course I'm in right now, where the technology is constantly being reevaluated. We're constantly deciding whether or not we want to shift from Piazza to Google Groups, or do we like Piazza's system, and what do we like about it? And there's an ongoing dialogue throughout the semester about the technologies. And I think that's a really great thing, because it brings the students into the fold and asks, what is it you're getting out of this technology? What is beneficial, what is not beneficial, and how can we sort of pare it down into a couple of offerings that really give you what you need for your class?
I agree with Scott. I think I agree with Scott in that the professor really sets the tone for the technology, I think, and how, the transparency is major. And also, if you say this is an experimental technology, we're going to work through it, we're going to, get feedback, that's important. But when a professor at the beginning of the class says, we have a Blackboard page, but I hate Blackboard, it's horrible, it doesn't, it doesn't do what I want it to do, immediate student disengagement. So I think it's big to be critical of the technology, but also, to say as a professor what your goal is with the technology. If you're going to say, oh, well, it's horrible, no one's going to use it, and it shouldn't exist in the first place. But if you're going to say, it has its challenges, it has its difficulties, we're going to work through it, I think that's a big difference there in setting the tone for how the technology will be used within the class.
I think what Dylan's getting at is that you really need to own it. Like, if you can own the technology that you're using, it's night and day. If there's a confidence being brought to the classroom in the way that you're using technology, it really makes a huge difference. Kind of in that same vein, we're talking a little bit about experimental things. Like a company like Apple takes a technology that's been around for like 5, even sometimes 10 years, and waits on it and waits on it and waits on it. And finally, when they feel like they can own it, they do it. And it feels new and exciting and innovative and relevant when they actually do it, even though it's been around for a while. And I think kind of a similar thing works here. Like, what a really great technology is? Email. Like, email works really well. It's compatible with everything. Everyone has it. And if you can use a system like email, like a listserv for a class, and use it really effectively, like, you don't have to master some new fancy thing that people are uncomfortable with. Like, you can take an old technology that's really effective and really own it and use it very effectively in the classroom, I think.
Yeah, no, you're all using pencils and papers.
Yes. And on that, on that same note, I just realized a couple of things. One is that there's a lot of Wharton folk up here. Number two, and that informs what I'm about to say, because I was in the college. I was growing up, oh my God. I was what do you call it, a technophile? I mean, you love technology? Yeah. I was a total technophile, all the new stuff that came, I wanted it. And it just made my life totally, just a mess, So then, now I'm 35, got 2 kids, and I'm back to paper and pen, because it helps me to sort of lay out what I'm going to do, but then I use that and I apply it to my technology background, and we have a family email or a family calendar on Google, that, you know, we update. My husband is a computer guy over at the college, not the college, engineering. So, like, you know, we keep in contact via texting and emailing and, you know, messaging and chatting. But the other thing is, too, that, you know, I really liked Blackboard when it first came out. I did not like the way the training for Blackboard happened in the individual classes, because there were some professors, and again, I'm going to jump on Dr. Scanga, who was just phenomenal with the way Blackboard worked. You know what I mean? It was very simple. You know, we had, you know, but I knew if I needed anything, I could just go to Blackboard, and there'd be one folder, or there'd be one place to go and get everything for the class. As I continued in nursing, and there were new staff and new faculty, whatever, I realized that there was not a lot of ownership for Blackboard, because we would have, you know, we would hear, oh, it's on Blackboard. Then you'd go to the Blackboard for the class, and actually it's not on Blackboard because the professor forgot to, like, upload it or whatever so that the students could see it, or there were like 25 folders in Blackboard, and so you tell me it's on Blackboard, but which folder am I looking at? Like, where am I supposed to find it? Am I supposed to go through every folder every day to see what's new? And you know what I mean? So I think it's very, very, very critical to, like, you know, like everyone's been saying, own the technology. If you want to keep it simple and have like 5 folders, fine. But when you start getting really fancy and have 26 folders and, you know, subfolders of the subfolders and all this kind of stuff, then you confuse yourself, and you definitely confuse your students. You know, and that was a big problem for my cohort this summer, because they were just, you know, you go to, you know, I was in 104 or 106, and you go to the 104, 106 folder, and one part was like, oh, we're not using this for anything. But then in class, it'd be like, oh, yeah, that folder that we said we're not using for anything, go ahead and look in it, because I put something in it. And you were like, what? You know, and then on top of that, we were getting tons of emails from Blackboard and then from the individuals. So all this is to say, like, you guys are my therapy right now, because I'm totally, like, venting, right? So
actually, every year this kind of devolves into Blackboard bashing.
Well, no, it's not. I don't want it to bash, because I think I love Blackboard. Me personally, I love Blackboard. I think it's a really smart way to organize your needs for classes and stuff. However, if you know, whoever's running, the professor, the TA, whatever, if that person's not really informed about what they're doing, you just end up making a miserable experience for the class, for your students, and then you get to the Blackboard passion. But I do love Blackboard. I do.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everyone has lots of questions.
I have a question for you. When you're talking about using Facebook, do you encourage students, I mean, do you go on it yourself so that everybody in your class can see you on Facebook, your personal life as well? Or when you create groups, do you encourage students to have like a new user?
So Aaron as well.
Aaron.
Well, so something that's nice about Facebook groups is the professor's also part of the group, and Facebook is really a one identity platform. They're really about authenticity in your real life and your online identity, whereas other platforms aren't. But you don't need to be friends with anyone in a group in order to be in a group with them. Additionally, the group can be secret. So our group is secret, meaning that when I post something in the group, no one outside of that class sees it. And also, like, when I'm in that group, even though people are posting things for people, none of us need to be friends, so they don't necessarily need to see anything about it.
Right, so you don't have to.
Yeah, and it's also, the professor feels comfortable. He's on Facebook, and there's no kind of invasion there, because he's also doesn't want to be friends with him.
Taylor.
Oh, I was going to say that none of you have to be actual friends on Facebook, and also that don't be afraid to ask your students for help, especially if it's experimental with Facebook. We're more than willing to let you know how to do it.
So one of the things I've gotten out of this panel, in the past is that students, there's some technologies that you guys know really, really well, like Facebook, and it's great to be able to use those technologies. You're comfortable with them. You understand about sharing preferences and different kinds of settings. And the other thing, which I've learned again and again, is no matter how many times you pick up the newspaper and it says there's a new generation who likes to share everything, what really is happening is you guys have very, very clear senses of what you share and what you don't, and what your online profiles look like.
I have something to say about Facebook. I struggled a lot for having 2 accounts. I tried to have 2 accounts so my students don't get to my personal Facebook. But then I realized it's too crazy. So I did, and a student of mine, as you said, helped me make the page. So I put the page for the Greek pen. And then you can have also sub groups there, so you can have all the classes separate too. So they all can go to this special page without seeing anything personal. And this is a great thing because it's a kind of a new thing, and if I didn't ask my students, I wouldn't know. So, there. Great.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and in particular to drawing our attention that the role of technology really is about meaningful engagement. And meaningful engagement with the students inside and outside of the classroom. And ownership as part of that, and also a spiral interaction in the sense that whatever you do outside of the classroom needs to come back into the classroom, what I call spiraling. I just have a question in the sense of, because in the previous panel we were talking about multitasking, and we were talking a little bit about that when you engage with technology in a meaningful way, that your attention might be drawn to all the different things that are going on in the virtual environment that you're in. And I wanted to just ask all of you, what were your high school experiences with technology? What kind of backgrounds did you have in terms of how you were prepared to engage with technology, and thus your expectations of technology when you came to the University of Pennsylvania?
Well, in my school, there was no laptops at all, no in-classroom laptops. So when I came to Penn, it was definitely a question of when do I use a laptop? Do I use a laptop for note-taking? Do I use paper note-taking? I have atrocious handwriting and can't really read my notes 5 minutes after I take them a lot of times. So it was a big question for me. And I know freshman year, I started out basically using the laptop to take notes in every class. And by now, it's about half and half. And I think it's really a question of, and I think probably if I used the laptop in high school, I'd be able to figure out this realization sooner, is that some classes are well suited for using a laptop. I know Peter and Scott and Aaron were meeting yesterday, and I talked about how classes have a lot of, super fact heavy, where there's a lot of things going on, and some things you might not be well accustomed to. A laptop's great because you can keep all of these, like a running list of all of these, names and dates and places. And you can also sidechain, and I know this is a question you said about multitasking in the beginning.
Yeah, in terms of how much you had contact with the internet, if there was any kind of project assessment in your high school where you actually had to do web quests, so you had to engage with the internet in a productive way. That's kind of what I was
in a real sense, not so much. Really, it was kind of a learning experience when I got here, and I guess it kind of speaks to the fact that it would be useful, I guess, in high school to have more engagement with technology, to have a better sense of knowing now how to, where you stand with it.
I think I'm going to kind of go in the same direction as Dylan. I think most students don't have a lot of preparation with technology in high school. Meaning, you obviously have a laptop and you use it, but not necessarily in school, not necessarily learning how to use it in a meaningful way. It's kind of, there's no one ever teaching you how to do that. And I think what that means when you get here is that you don't have this preparation, and that makes having a laptop in the classroom extremely dangerous. Meaning, there's never been any self-control training. And so you can talk about the benefits of having a laptop in the classroom, right? Like for fact checking, and I want to look something up, and I want to pull a link into my notes and whatever it is. And there definitely are real benefits. But I think if you ever stood in the back of your classroom, especially in a big lecture hall, for 5 minutes during your lecture, and saw the pros and cons of people having laptops, I mean, you'd be appalled, and you would immediately forbid laptops in your lecture room. I'm not being hyperbolic. If I was a lecturer, if I was in a small seminar, I would never allow my students to use laptops, even though there are very real benefits. Like, there are ways that it can be used meaningfully, but I think the cons far outweigh the pros, and I would never allow it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you went to an academic conference or a board meeting, you'd be surprised at how many people on Facebook.
Yeah.
Anyone.
And they were all looking at it, like you, just like now.
I'm sorry.
This is actually one way I see it, right? This is preparation for the real world, right? Facebook is out there everywhere. If it's not in the classrooms, you're not going to be ready.
Now, I need to jump in here because just to put in some perspective. So when I was in high school, email just rolled out. All right, so we were on those Macs that were like the big box with the disk in the, you know what I'm saying? And we got email accounts. We're like, oh, this is so exciting. So we didn't do laptops. Like, people who had laptops were very like, oh my gosh, I have a laptop. You know how to type? Oh my goodness, you know what I mean? And so then when I got to Penn in 90, when did I get to Penn? I don't know, 96, I don't know, it's all blurred now. You know, people were still taking notes on, you know, paper, pen, you know, what was coming out. I think then that it was like the Axiom or something, the Dell Axiom, which is the handheld, it was like one of the first things that were popping up on campus and stuff, and people, I've got my Axiom and all this kind of stuff. And so it wasn't until I came back to Penn and started doing my prereqs for nursing that I was like again, in Dr. Skanga's class, people were taking notes on their computer. I'm like, what the hell? You know, I was like, what is going on? You know, why don't you have a paper and pen? What is going on? And like, you know, literally there were people who were like staring at Dr. Skanga and they were just, and I'm like, what is going on? You know, it was crazy. So over time, I have learned that there is a place for your technology. I don't think it should be banned straight out in the classroom with the laptops, because yeah, people do get on Facebook or, you know, go shopping at Piper Lime or whatever. But what's to say that I'm not sitting here with my notebook staring at the professor and dreaming about, you know, spring break? You know what I mean? That doesn't really mean anything. And for me, it's more meaningful because if I don't have stacks of paper for my PowerPoint, like, I don't know if you're familiar with nursing, it's all like PowerPoint slides and notes, and it's awesome. But if I have to print all that out, it's just going to become a mess. So if I have it on my computer and I can, and I'm listening to the professor talking and they're saying something, I don't get that. Okay, so let me make a note on my PowerPoint slide on my computer and say, I don't get this, remind me to, boom, right? And so then I go home, the kids attack me, whatever, and I get some free time, and then I look through my notes, and by this time, I don't know what the heck I was talking about in class. I don't know what we were learning. I have no idea. You know, my brain is frazzled. But I'm looking at my computer, and I open my file, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't remember that. And oh, yeah, I put a link in here so I can go to that website that they talked about. Oh, yeah. Now, do you think I'm going to write all this down in pen and paper, you know, on a piece of paper, like, especially the websites? No way. It's all about cut and pasting. It's all, if you forget anything else, it's always about cut and pasting, okay, for your students, seriously, when they have their laptop. Because then I can go home and look and basically redo class with me as the professor and the student, if that makes sense. So yeah, I got everything the professor said to me, okay, and I'm taking it. Now I'm going to interpret it. Now I'm going to figure out, what does this mean to me? Now, because I don't, for whatever reason, typing is easier on the hands than handwriting, I can just like blurb, blah, 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 you know, everything that makes sense to me, as opposed to having a notebook and I ran out of room and I ran out of this and I got to get another notebook and all this kind of stuff. It just organizes it all a lot more. So, I mean, I think that to unilaterally say no laptops or no whatever, you really have to, I mean, again, we're at an Ivy League institution. You got to trust that your students are going to figure it out. At some point, they got to figure it out. If they don't figure it out, because look, I'm a mom, you guys, remember, if you're 18 years old and you expect me to figure it out for you, okay, you needed some home training. You know, at some point you had to, you know, no, but seriously, at some point you have to raise this little person to be a self-sufficient adult. And if you don't trust your students to figure it out, if you really don't trust your students to figure it out, maybe you need to think about, well, why am I even having this class? And if that's the case, you feel like you need to teach your students.
Or you can send them to WIC.
Yeah, or you can send them, WIC or Weingarten or whatever. But honestly, you have to have like a trust in your student. At some point, they got to figure it out, or send them to the direction to figure it out.
Yeah, also Taylor's.
I was just going to make 2 points to your question. During high school, I did have the opportunity to use laptops a lot. I think I'm probably an anomaly, it sounds like. For me, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I was also in the International Baccalaureate program, where I don't think I went for more than 2 weeks without having a project or paper of some kind. So for me, technology was always a part of my schooling, because if it wasn't research, it was something about philosophy. Or if it wasn't philosophy, it was our theory of knowledge class. Or if it wasn't theory of knowledge, it was my environmental science and systems and societies class. So for me, technology has been a part of my life since the 6th grade, because that's just how the IB program works. Like, if it isn't research or theory based, then we're probably not going to do it. So for me, I had a computer in my class. It was actually provided by the school, so we use laptops inside our classrooms maybe 2 to 3 times a week. I know that's not the normal. I know that's not the norm for people to have laptops given to them by the school. That's crazy, but especially in our economy. But I would say that my second point is that you kind of have to meet your students where they are, as well as you have to know what class you're teaching, because a lot of professors try to take one thing that worked from one class and apply it to another class when they're 2 completely different classes. So if, for example, if you have a quantitative class, like I'm taking statistics right now, and we use what's called JUMP. It's a computer program. So having a laptop in the class is indispensable because we can follow him on our laptops while he does it. Now, during my nursing class, I'm taking victimology right now. If I have my laptop out, it's highly likely that I'm not listening whatsoever. So you really just have to know what you're teaching and the students that are taking your class, because it really depends on the subject matter how the laptop or the iPad is going to interact with the actual course material.
I think it's just one final follow-up to that. I have a very different perspective. I went to a boarding high school, and sort of at the time they were doing like a lot of technology. It was very comparable to Penn. They were even experimenting in open courseware for alumni and prospective students and things like that. So when I came in, I had done 4 years of Blackboard already, and we had been using Google Docs and Dropbox and sort of different collaborative platforms. And what I will say, when I go back to my high school and sort of just, I was always a techie kid, and just hear sort of about what they're doing, it seems like that's where the trend is going with just general secondary schools and private schools in sort of New England, that they're really starting to involve technology very heavily into their classrooms.
And 12 years old are coming in differently. You are ahead. There's pardon? Assume it. No. Right. I don't assume that all of them, but I do assume that, like here, like you're seeing just now, that indeed there is quite a bit, and that there's quite a bit of preservation as well.
Yeah, you see there's a good variety.
Yeah.
So it's going to get Shannon.
I just wanted to ask a question about moving from multitasking to unit tasking. So actually asking I say this because I had a student turn to me once when I saw that he was on Facebook and also had a Word doc open and was taking notes every once in a while, right, going back and forth. And I said, can you shut down your Facebook, please? Because we were watching a part of the documentary. And he goes, how can you multitask? And I said, I'm not asking you to multitask. I'm asking you to do one thing, which is to listen to the documentary or watch the documentary. You can take notes on that, so maybe I'm asking you to do a couple of things, right? And how do you negotiate that as students in the sense that on the one hand, you actually have pressure to multitask, right? To be successful in the world, you need to be able to handle your Twitter account, your Facebook account, you got to put yourself out there, make yourself visible, right? Share your knowledge, while also being able to take notes, be critical about what the professor is saying, what your classmates are saying. So how do you negotiate the pressure to be multitaskers with sometimes the pressure in the classroom to focus on one thing?
I just had a question because I heard someone in the audience say multitasking, and I wanted to address that because I know there's been a lot of studies that say multitasking is like almost impossible in the classroom, and I will to an extent agree with that. And I think that when you're in the classroom, if you want to be successful, you really have to shut off multitasking, unless it's something I really don't understand this. Let me look at a quick Wikipedia page to get a little better idea of what this person is. Other than that, though, like Facebook, if you're on Facebook, there's no way you're focusing on both. I have a class where professor, no laptop whatsoever. You're not allowed, and it's by far the most engaging class in a large lecture setting that I've been in at Penn. I mean, it's not just technology. He's very into grabbing students and bringing them in, but the pressure of multitasking in class just has to be shut off. It's difficult because you're constantly in an hour and a half you could have 30 emails sent to your listserv, and you could be, missing an event, RSVP for the night or something like that. But I think it's really key to, when you're in the classroom, if you want to learn to your fullest extent, I think multitasking is extremely detrimental. And I know from my experience, it has been detrimental to paying attention.
Well, that just goes back to the question earlier of, so what's the professor's responsibility in your eyes for creating an environment that forces you to do that, right? By having like a no laptops, depending on the type of class. I mean, Linda, you're talking about a particular type of class that may actually require that you have your laptop so that you can see certain things while you're also paying attention to the lecture. But what do you think the professor's responsibility is for creating that learning environment?
So Linda, you were talking a little bit about like that this is an opportunity for, you need to trust your students and your students need to grow up. Anyone who's been an undergraduate knows that this is not anything close to real life. I mean, it's a joke to compare this to anything like as a stepping stone towards the real world, right? It's so far from it. We're in this weird bubble of social norms, and everything about it is not anything like real life. But what it is an opportunity for just concentrated learning, right? Like where the goal is not like high school where it's like you got to get these requirements done and you got to submit this stuff and whatever. Like the goal is really just to engage really deeply and learn in a really meaningful way. And I think that's the opportunity that you have to give to your students. And I think kind of it's doing the students in it's not doing them any favors to allow them to use a laptop in a classroom, because we may think that we want that, but in actuality what we really want is to engage deeply and to learn. And like a laptop is inherently a multitasking device, right? And the line for us has become where we don't even, sometimes that line is blurred. If my email's open in this other tab and I just like see that number going up, like if I just run and check it for a second, like that's not really multitasking, that's just like part of what I do all day. But it is like those little moments where you go and you do something on your computer, even if it's like change the brightness, right? Like, oh, you notice like, oh, the brightness is a little higher, it's a little lower. Like that moment when you did something with this machine that has a lot of functions and is inherently capable of doing many things is where you lost that little question that would have sparked into your head that was really meaningful to what you were talking about. And so I find like so I'm advocating for this, right? Like for not having laptops in the classroom, but I still take notes on a laptop in 2 of my classes, and I don't know why I do. I mean, it's irrational. I should stop. I should really just stop, because like when I do it, I try to focus, but there's always just something that's going to come up, and it's impossible not to. And I observe Jewish holidays, and on Jewish holidays, I don't use any technology. And I went to that class on a Jewish holiday when I couldn't use my laptop, and it was so much more meaningful. I mean, the class it's not the most interesting class that I have. It wasn't necessarily far and away like a better class, but I took those times when I normally would have been bored and gone and opened another tab, and just like thought about something crazy related to the material, like took it that step further that I wouldn't have been able to do if I had a laptop in front of me.
I will say though, I see Professor Steins in the audience, and she's raising her hand. I had her freshman year, and a lot of people use laptops in her class, and I think it's really also a question of how engaging the professor is in general. Like people, Professor Steins is very engaging. She plays the song at the beginning of the class. It's really a really great experience. And for some people, I think the laptop might just be a great way to take notes. But for some classes, when it's less engaging, they can be, super scary for the professor, because, if they're not creating an engaging environment, people use the laptop as an escape. And that's, it's either I'm going to go on Facebook or I'm going to fall asleep. So, and it's not trying to,
But we always did that. I mean, that's why I'm putting my hand up here. I'm old.
I was a student before there were laptops. I was a student before there were iPhones. Do you think I was engaged in the class 100% of the time? No. I used to listen to the professor for 10 minutes, and then I used to read my book, and I used to look at my notes, and I used to draw pictures. I used to dawdle. I used to make my shopping list. It's just a natural way for us to learn. We engage for 5 or 7 minutes, then we tune out for 30 seconds, then we come back in again. I think the laptop is just one tool to do this, disengagement and re-engagement with the material. It's the professor's job to get the students back in again after 30 seconds.
I mean, you have to actually look at reality. I know the prototypical student is going to be engaged for the 50-minute lecture, for the 80-minute lecture, without any breaks. And as much as I'd love to be that person, I'm not. So, there's obviously like a balance of responsibility on that. Like part of the responsibility is obviously on the student. We're paying the University of Pennsylvania to take classes, to learn, to get a degree, and hopefully make money. So it's obviously our responsibility to go to class and learn something. But not every professor is going to be engaging. And that's not your fault. It's really not. Like, sometimes your lecture might just not be as engaging as it usually is. And that's okay. But you do have to realize that, like every student isn't going to be 100% engaged all the time. So for me, during certain classes, I need my 5-minute Facebook break. I apologize, but as soon as my 5-minute Facebook break is done, my laptop is closed and I'm back to writing notes. But like, I don't know if it's like a drug or if it's an addiction, but like I just have to check my social media. It's something so ingrained in me. I apologize, but it's something that I have to do. It's almost compulsive. So like, open the laptop, 5 minutes, close it, back to writing notes about statistics, back to writing notes about victimology, back to writing notes about whatever I'm doing. It's something that is more common than you would think, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily a positive thing, but those 5-minute Facebook breaks really help me re-engage. So I don't know what I would do without them.
So the great thing about this discussion has been that we're not talking about the tools a lot. We're not talking about software. We're not talking that much about laptops. We're talking about technology generally and about like the culture and the use. And realize there's so much more going on. So just to like end, can you give me? We're out of time. But let's go back to the tools. Tell me what's one tool, or technology or piece of software that you think we should use more. You'd like to see used more.
So this was something.
No explanation, but just
okay. Yeah, it's called self-control. Something a teacher gave me for class to make sure that like you can't access Facebook. And I use it for all my classes. So.
I'm pro self-control. I use it for studying, but I would say like Google Docs and like Google Drive. Encouraging your students to use Google Drive is really important, just because they can collaborate on things without being in the same place.
Second, Google Docs and Google Drive, awesome, sweet.
Yep, same thing. Google.
Yep, Google Docs.
Also, same thing every year. Use more Google Docs and Google.